A pitcher can feel ready, throw live hitters, and still be standing in one of the most dangerous parts of rehab, the ramp up back to game stress. That is the sports science lesson behind Garrett Crochet's latest setback. On June 1, Boston.com reported that the Red Sox ace had a setback in his comeback from left shoulder inflammation after new tightness appeared in his left lat during his throwing progression. His scheduled live BP was paused, and the plan was for medical review, with MRI evaluation likely. This video is not a diagnosis of Crochet from the outside. We do not have his imaging, strength testing, exact throwing loads, velocity targets, or mechanical data. But the case gives us a useful question. Why can a pitcher look close to returning, feel much better, and still hit a problem when the workload starts to climb? Before we go further, subscribe to Sports Science Insight for evidence-based breakdowns of performance, rehab, and sports science in the news. Here is what we know from the public report. Crochet had been sidelined with left shoulder inflammation. He had progressed from basic recovery toward higher stress throwing. That means bullpen work, live hitters, and a planned ramp back toward competition. Then lat tightness appeared. The team paused the next live BP instead of continuing the schedule. That pause can look frustrating from the outside. Fans want timelines. Teams want their best arms back. Players want to compete. But in return to play, the calendar is only one pressure. Biology is the other pressure. And biology does not always adapt on the same timeline as the roster. The key point is this: the late rehab phase is not just about whether the athlete can move without pain. It is about whether the entire throwing system can tolerate repeated, high-intent, high-velocity exposures. Feeling better matters, but feeling better is not the same as being fully loaded. In pitching, the shoulder, elbow, trunk, hip, and latissimus dorsi all contribute to force production and energy transfer. The lat is not just a random back muscle. It is part of the kinetic chain that helps connect the trunk, shoulder, and arm during the throwing motion. A player may have less pain during daily activity. He may feel good during controlled throwing. He may even complete a live session. But the question changes as intensity rises. Can the tissue tolerate volume? Can it tolerate velocity? Can it tolerate repeat exposure? Can it tolerate imperfect mechanics under fatigue? Can it tolerate game-like intent, with adrenaline and competitive pressure? That is why symptoms are only one signal. Strength, mechanics, workload history, rest, velocity, response the next day, and medical findings all matter. A 2024 study in the International Journal of Sports Physical Therapy compared interval throwing programs for baseball pitchers. The important finding was not simply that throwing programs exist. It was that different programs can create very different workload patterns. Some programs produced repeated spikes outside a proposed safe acute to chronic workload range. A modeled optimized program increased load more steadily. The translation is simple: the shape of the ramp matters. Two pitchers might end up at the same throwing distance or the same number of throws. But if one pitcher gets there through abrupt spikes, and another gets there through a steadier progression, the tissue stress can be very different. That is why return to throwing cannot be reduced to one box checked on a schedule. It is volume plus intensity plus rest plus symptoms plus response. And when a pitcher moves from controlled throws to bullpen work, then to live hitters, and then toward competition, the load is not just increasing in amount. It is increasing in intent. Intent is one of the most important ideas here. A 2024 American Journal of Sports Medicine study in high school pitchers found injury risk was associated with higher game velocity, increased intensity from preseason to in-season, and pitcher age. That study is not MLB data, so we should not overapply it to a professional pitcher. But it supports a broader principle that coaches and rehab teams already respect. Throwing harder is not a neutral variable. When intensity increases, the body is not just doing more. It is dealing with different forces, different timing, and often different mechanics. That is why a pitcher can look good in a controlled setting and still not be ready for full competition. Live hitters are closer to game stress than simple throwing. But even live BP does not perfectly reproduce the unpredictability, adrenaline, fatigue, and tactical demands of a real start. So the danger zone is not always the first pain-free throw. Sometimes it is the moment when the athlete is almost back. This is where the idea of a return to pitching dashboard becomes useful. A good return plan should not rely on one signal. It should track multiple signals at the same time. Volume tells you how much throwing has been done. Intensity tells you how hard those throws were. Velocity gives one measure of output. Rest tells you whether recovery is built into the plan. Symptoms tell you how the athlete is responding. Movement quality helps show whether the athlete is compensating. And next day response can be just as important as the session itself. The late rehab question is not, did he feel good today? The better question is, can he repeat this exposure, recover from it, and progress again without the system breaking down? So what is the smart response to a setback during ramp-up? First, pause. That does not mean panic. It means do not force the next high-stress step just because it was on the schedule. Second, reassess. Look at symptoms, imaging if needed, strength, mechanics, workload history, and how the athlete responded after the previous exposure. Third, adjust the load. That might mean reducing intensity, changing volume, adding rest, correcting mechanics, or rebuilding a specific tolerance that is lagging behind. Fourth, progress again when the evidence supports it. For athletes, this matters because a setback does not automatically mean rehab failed. Sometimes it means the system just revealed where tolerance is not yet strong enough. For coaches, the lesson is even more direct. Do not treat pain-free today as the same thing as ready for full-speed sport. The hype around this story is predictable. Some people will say it is nothing. Others will treat it like a disaster. The honest answer is that the public does not have enough data to know. What is solid is the sports science principle. Late-stage pitching rehab is vulnerable because the athlete is moving from controlled throwing back toward competitive intent. Workload spikes, velocity increases, and abrupt changes deserve respect. Lat-related injuries in professional pitchers are not automatically catastrophic. A 2023 review on latissimus dorsi and teres major injuries reported high return-to-play rates among professional pitchers. But the evidence base was also described as mostly lower-level and heterogeneous, which means we should avoid simple guarantees. So the bottom line is this. Elite return-to-play is a negotiation between biology and calendar pressure. The team wants the ace back. The athlete wants to compete. Fans want a timeline. But tissue adaptation does not care about the standings. If this video helped you understand the science behind return to pitching, leave a like, subscribe to Sports Science Insight, and watch the next breakdown for more evidence-based analysis of performance and rehab in elite sport.